a very accomplished and famous doctor recently said, if you really listen to the patient, they will tell you their diagnosis, even if they're wrong on the diagnosis. Now, this advice applies to many areas of real life. Um, Now, for example, journalists and other people who think and write publicly about politics should follow this. But newsmakers and everyday people, too, talk, we should listen closely and not try to impose our own meaning and agendas on what they say. Now, too many times, there's an impulse and a bad habit of trying to discern secret meanings to triangulate and make inferences that are not present or merited. Now, even worse, too many members of the commentariat reach their own conclusions before they actually have any proper accounting of the facts and what a person actually has to say about what they're saying. Um, as journalist scholar Jay Rosen explains, in politics, journalists believe it is better to be savvy than it is to be honest or correct in the facts. Now, if you listen closely, people will tell and show you who they really are, and what they actually fucking believe, and by doing so, they reveal their true fucking character. Now, such a process of honest listening brings us much closer to the truth, and even if we do not like what we find there. Um, Now, to wit, when Donald Trump and his sycophantic inbreds communicate their threats and love of violence and overall contempt for democracy, they mean exactly what the fuck they say. Take for instance, Georgia Representative Marjorie Trader Green at last weekend's CPAC gathering in Washington, D.C. And there, the Republican announced that she is going to pass a bill in Congress called the Protect Children's Innocence Act that will supposedly make it a felony to perform anything to do with gender-affirming care on children. Now, this is what the dumb bitch said. These are kids who are confused about who they are, and they are confused about who they are because of what they are seeing on the internet, and what they see on social media, and they are also confused, many of them, because these victims of the billion-dollar industry that mutilates the genitals of children, which is actually not true because they don't do that. Many of these victims have diagnoses of autism, mental illness, and they have depression, anxiety, and psychosis. And many of them live in foster care, so they have already lived lives of abuse. And these victims come in thinking they're going to find happiness and they're going to find security and their identity because they think they can change their gender. Now, she claims that these boys think they can become girls and the girls think that they can become boys, but what's happening to them is they're given puberty blockers that actually chemically castrates them. I doubt that. Now, The Independent offered this summary of what actual medical professionals have recommended regarding how best to support care for any kid going through the transgender treatment thing. Now, gender-affirming care can span several kinds of treatments, including puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and social transitioning support. Now, care standards from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health and other leading medical groups, they do not recommend affirming surgeries be performed on minors because, they wouldn't be able to handle it. And the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Academy of Family Physicians, among others, have established clear clinical guidelines for treating the young trans people. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics, meanwhile, is the nation's largest professional association of pediatricians, and the group recommends gender-affirming and non-judgmental approach that helps children feel safe in a society that too often marginalizes or stigmatizes those seen as different. Now, the gender-affirming model strengthens family resiliency, and it takes the emphasis off the heightened concerns over gender while allowing children the freedom to focus on academics, relationship building, and other typical development tasks, according to the organization. Now, words do have meaning. Now, through her words, Trader Green has repeatedly shown herself to be a hate monger, a white supremacist, a white Christian nationalist, anti-Semite, an anti-Semite and a neo-fascist, and a supporter of the January 6th Klan riot. Now, those facts must be repeated and not assumed or otherwise glossed over as something obvious, because to do so is to normalize evil. And it is through normalization that neo-fascism and other forms of authoritarianism and illiberalism penetrate and poison an entire society. Now, Trader Green's speech at CPAC and the larger pattern of attacks in the LGBTQ community by the far right as part of a strategy known as stochastic terrorism, where a malign actor uses repetition, coded language, and overt threats, humor, and other rhetorical moves to stigmatize an entire group of people as a way of encouraging violence against them. Now, when said outcome takes place, those same actors will then deny any connection to the lethal events that they incited. Now, there are now hundreds of laws being proposed across the country that are attempting to take away the civil and human rights of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people. Now, books, classes, and public discussions about the history, lives, and contributions and existence of the LGBTQ people are being banned by um, thought crime laws in states such as Florida and Texas, and the number of hate crimes, including mass shootings targeting the LGBTQ people, are increasing all over the United States. It is clear more than just it is clear that more than just trolling or posturing for political points, Marjorie Taylor Greene and her allies are engaging in a concerted campaign to literally erase the LGBTQ people from American history. Now, through email, basically, journalist and author Bryn Tannehill, basically, she was asked her thoughts about this escalating campaign of violence and threats against the LGBTQ community, and this is what she had said. This is not just trolling or culture war rhetoric. They are clearly stating their intent to use the full force of government to remove transgender people from public life. They are looking to do this at both the state and national level, and they are making all the necessary moves to do so already. At CPAC, the anti-trans lines received the biggest applause and cheers. In 1933, the New York Times had opinion that Hitler's anti-Semitic rhetoric was just playing to the rubes, and when he became chancellor, it would be business as usual as German business moderates would win out in this cabinet. But 83 years later, in the days after the election of Donald Trump, and Masha Gessen reminded us in rule number 1 of her rules for surviving autocracy, that we must believe the autocrat. And absolutely, we must believe what the right is saying, particularly because they're already doing everything they would need to accomplish their staged goal of eradication. Now, when you look at this eradication and means in practice, it clearly meets the definition of cultural genocide, which is the systematic destruction of traditions, values, language, and other elements that make one group of people distinct from another. Trans people violate gender norms. The GOP is trying to eliminate this distinct group of people from public life by forcing them to detransition and live as hermits in their houses or flee to another country. Even though the fascist threat to their democracy and society and our own safety has repeatedly been made clear and obvious throughout the age of Trump, too many Americans have chosen to be bystanders to history. And watching these attacks in the LGBTQ community and doing nothing because it doesn't have anything to do with me, or I am not gay or lesbian or transgender or one of them is so who fucking cares? This is precisely the wrong approach to take when the human and civil rights of an entire group of people, or for that matter an individual, are being imperiled. America is fucking sick with fascism, and fascism at its fucking core is a corrupt fucking power. The Republican fascists and their allies and followers will not stop with the LGBTQ community, and they are targeting other groups of people who they deem to be un-American, or immoral, or not Christian. And by its very nature, fascism knows no limits or boundaries to its violence and cruelty, and that rule applies to those people who are sympathetic or even outright support Donald. So basically, if you don't look Donald's nuts, they want you eradicated. The Republican fascists and the conservative movement, such leaders have no respect for their followers and view them with contempt. In this way, fascism is cannibalistic. It starts with the so-called other, before it then turns turns its sights to normal people. And we should all listen very carefully to Marjorie Taylor Greene and the other Republican fascists, their followers, and propagandists such as Foe, and of course Donald Trump and his Hitler retribution threats. And basically, they claim that they're being very honest and direct about their plans for American society, and they are not fucking kidding, so believe them. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. You can also support my work even further, which you can find in the about by donating to my Patreon link, which you can find in the about section of YouTube. And for just as little as a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way. And thanks for listening, and also leave a comment and let me know what you think.